So thank you all for coming here to Nova 24. I named it this because I thought it was sci-fi and cool now that AI is a thing. My name is Ian Ingram. I'm a computer science major here at the university. I have a history in Marine Corps aviation. A lot of the faculty know this story, but I like to say that my main claim to fame was that I was the engine inspector clearing the Harriers for former astronaut and Senator John Glenn's funeral flyover. There wasn't actually a flyover that day because there was a lightning storm, but I'm still going to brag about it. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I kind of floundered a little bit, and then a few years later settled on computer science because I wanted to learn about code. And I think it was the perfect time because right around my computer science 1, my 101 class was when ChatGPT came out, and I just had an existential crisis. What is the world going to look like now that you have tools that can take natural language and then output code, for example? And while they're not perfect, what is the world going to look like in 5 years or 10 years? Because this is the worst that those tools will ever be. And so I started to kind of do a lot of research in its impact on education, how education can best react to it. And that's kind of what the event is here today. Is even though this technology is extremely fast moving, it seems overwhelming, it's best not to have a hasty response because the impact of these tools in education and society is very real. And so what we've done at the SOU innovation community is we've gathered some students and some faculty members to test out AI tools as they come out. This is a constant process to discuss how they can be leveraged for aiding or augmenting curriculum or aiding or augmenting students in their studies. So there will be a chance in a little bit to talk to faculty members about some of their projects. But first, however, a good friend of mine, David, he does some fascinating work with large language models and AI. And so I would like to first open the floor to him to talk about some of the stuff that he does out in industry with people who are in need of accessibility technology as well as disability services. So I will give a little bit more of a background on the innovation community itself, but first, welcome, David.
So this is my friend Loppy here. He is a service robot in training. His basic function is twofold, is to follow you around everywhere like a pest and to be an extra set of hands for people. He can carry up to 20 pounds, his capacity, and he can follow you around for about 22, 23 miles on a single charge. Over the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see just a mere explosion of robots in every sector of everything that we do. There's people just getting incredibly creative with robots, and so we, as an organization, let me fast forward. Loppy, David. I'm the director of IT and as well as the team lead for Living Opportunities for our assistive technology and AI departments. I get to play with robots and AI and technology and all kinds of assistive tech devices to see if it benefits people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So because of that, I get to go out in the world and see what existing technology is out there, and we get to play with it and see if there's a match. We're people service, we're people first, that's our philosophy. So while we look at technology, we always kind of have in mind of how it could benefit. We call it the forgotten community. A lot of people with disabilities do not get looked at when engineers, tech firms are developing and building out technology for all of us for it to be convenient. But some of that technology can be life-changing and life-fulfilling for people. We've had situations where people were actually able to live on their own due to technology, smart technology in their home. Talking fire alarm, smoke detectors, fire suppression systems, all kinds of things that can help the person, whether it's flashing lights because there's someone's at the door, or ability to just bypass having to answer the phone and just have a two-way communication. All these all of these safety and health features allows people who would otherwise live in like places like a group home or in some states institutions that still have institutions. So I want to actually kind of kick things off and kind of tell a story. I'm kind of an amateur futurist, and this is what I tell my team because I want them to kind of think about things in a broader sense and where you want to see the track of innovation, the track of technology to go. So the story I'm going to tell you, and I have on my presentation. Don't move. Don't load it. I'm not a PowerPoint person. Hated PowerPoint since college. I don't know if that offends any of the faculty people, but I don't care. PowerPoint is the bane of my existence. So I just really like to come up and just kind of tell stories, show people, demonstrate real things and stuff. If you do want a copy of my PowerPoint, I can send it to you. It has all the cool notes and for those who love that stuff. But the story here takes place in the year 2034. And it revolves around a young woman named Mona Lisa. She is in her 30s. She has a 9-year-old kid. She's a single parent, and she is on the autism spectrum. So I'm just going to kind of give you a brief introduction to the day of her life and what that looks like with technology. So just on a typical day, Mona, she's a professional. She works in jobs like you and I. She actually works for a corporate bank. And so her day kind of starts out just like anyone else's. She wakes up and she gets her morning coffee, takes her little meditation break, get her day ready and prepared, have a conversation with her AI assistant about what's going on today. The AI assistant let her know that today is a big, important meeting because her little corporate bank job just got gobbled up by a bigger bank. And so they are really having departments give presentations and make determinations whether or not they're going to bring them into the fold or just axe that department and stuff. So she has a presentation she has to give, and so she wants to be really prepared. She's been gearing up for this day. So she gets ready for the day. She gets her kid ready and sends him off to school. She gets in her transport vehicle, and I say transport vehicle because cars aren't really the lingo that they talk about. We're talking about level 3, level 4 self-driving cars. So for those who don't know, those type of vehicles you can drop in any environment, and they can navigate the situation pretty good without human intervention. In fact, you don't even need a steering wheel for level 3, level 4 type of vehicles. So they're known as transport vehicles. So she gets in her transport vehicle, and it takes her off to work. It drops her off curbside service, kind of like a chauffeur does, everything but the red carpet to roll out to her office job, and she goes into her office job. She is now in her office, kind of preparing with her AI assistant. Another thing about her AI assistant is connected to everything that is important to her. So she can interact with it in her house, in her car, on her phone, on her watch, any of the wearables that's kind of cool in the year 2034. So while she's going over her presentation with her AI assistant, one of her coworkers come in and say, hey, you know what, my birthday's tomorrow. I don't typically ask for particular presents, but I remember that one time you made this amazing quiche, and I really would love, like I said, I don't typically do this, I don't ask for presents, but if you can make that for me for my birthday tomorrow, that would be fantastic. And, being the friendly person that Mona is, she says, sure, yeah, no problem. I'll happily do it. I'm glad you love my quiche. It's a really cool and special dish for me. Everyone's following along so far. So she talks to her AI assistant and says, hey, I need you to check to make sure I have all the supplies I need to make this particular quiche for my coworker here. So the AI communicates with her house. Her house has a house robot that is able to relay all of the necessities as far as what's in her cupboards, in her fridge, and realize she does not have everything she needs to make that very special quiche for her coworker. So she does what anyone does in that time, is she tell her AI assistants to send the car to the grocery store to go pick up and shop for the items that I need. Oh, and I forgot this little tidbit here. When the car dropped her off people assume that I probably went to go to the parking lot to find a spot to park because, cars can do that now. If you have a Tesla, they have that self-parking and pickup mode. Nope. Her particular transport vehicle actually takes on another job. It actually goes around and it's an Uber taxi service. And so it's out and about in the community, earning her an additional revenue and stuff for her. So while she does make good money, you might as well have it, bring in some additional income and stuff. Why not? So she talks to her AI like, hey, go ahead and place an order, get the groceries, send the car to go pick it up and drop it off at the house. The AI does it, sends that information over to the car reroutes, drops off its last fare, goes to the grocery store. The grocery store able to communicate with the car, drops off, put the groceries in the trunk. The car goes to her house and drops off the groceries with the house robot. So while that happens, she's preparing and getting ready to go in for a presentation. It's kind of similar like this. She's very nervous. There's a lot of people just staring at her and stuff. And so high anxiety is kind of building and stuff. So, with that said, because she has a health service record, she's able to actually have a strategy and built for her specifically to help her self-soothe and help her calm herself down. And her way of calming down is playing really old classic rock like Metallica. So I say old classic rock because that's what it would be in year 2034. For me, Metallica is like 5 years ago. But plays that, it helps calm her down, get her pumped and excited for the presentation. So she's starting her presentation and she's killing it. Her presenting partner is her AI assistant. So they get to kind of play back and forth as they're communicating with all the executives in the meeting. And lo and behold, something happens. The school where her kids go to calls, and schools don't typically call unless there's a problem, right? So now the issue with this is her phone's on Do Not Disturb. She's in the middle of an important presentation here that may, cause her department to get the axe or be brought into the fold and stuff. So what happens when you put your phone on Do Not Disturb? Her AI assistant answers the phone. And so her AI assistant answers the phone. The school relays the message that, hey, your kid is sick. Need you to come and get your kid. So the AI assistant actually breaks the silence of the phone. Obviously, it's an emergency. So she excuses herself because her phone rings and she takes the call. She says, well, okay, I'm in the middle of a meeting. I really cannot, come and get my kiddo right this second. But what I will do is I'm going to send my car to come and pick him up and take him home. And while I was doing that, I'm going to have, I'm going to get on the phone with his pediatrician and do telehealth service and everything else and all of that fun stuff. So school's like, okay, cool. Just, have the car notify us when we get there. We'll have your son out front waiting. And then she tells her AI assistant, hey, I want you to send a message to my son and tell him why mommy can't be there to pick you up. I will see you as soon as I possibly can and I can get off work. She records the live video. So when the car goes, picks up I'll say Timmy, little Ian, at the curb there. The school administrator puts him in the car takes him home. While he's on the ride home, it plays a video of mom telling him like, hey, I'm so sorry I couldn't be there for you. I will see you as soon as possible. When you get home, have some soup. I want you to get some rest and also have your pediatrician. They'll be waiting for you on the tablet when you get home. So when he gets home, there's the PA, it's not the pediatrician, it's the physician assistant, talks to Timmy, has him put on a health medical band, takes all of the vitals in real time, sends that information not only to the pediatrician's office, but to the mom, and also notifies the mom that it is a flu, it is going around, here's some of the over-the-counter medications that can be taken, assign the robot from the house to deliver that medication, and it gives it to Timmy, and then instruct Timmy to Ian, sorry, my bad. Instruct Ian to take a nap and get some rest and stuff. Meanwhile, She's finished her award-winning presentation. She saves her entire department. I mean, round of applause, everything. The executives love her and stuff. Hell, they wanted to make her the CEO after that presentation and all that. But she tells her coworkers promptly, I gotta go. My son's sick, boss, I gotta go. So she leaves, she heads out the front door, and boom, her car is there. Well, her car uses intuitive AI because the thing is, it understood the interactions of that day, understood that she sent a message, the school contacted her, she sent a message to her kid that the kid's going home and everything else. So instead of the car going back to working and clocking in for Uber and being a taxi service, it was able to make the determination that she's going to want to come home at some point in time. So between her AI assistant and the car, it was waiting for her at curbside. She got in the car, was able to go home, see that her son is sleeping, have a conversation with the pediatrician, and everything is right as rain. All the ingredients to make that special quiche and stuff is already delivered at the house. It's just a typical day for Mona Lisa. Now, the reason why I actually tell this story, and I tell it in the way I do, because in that story, other than me telling you that Mona Lisa is on the spectrum, there's no sign that she has a disability at all. In fact, everything that she did, how she interacted with their technology is everything that you guys would do. It's just a convenient thing for people. For her, it's life-changing because it actually allows her to actually be a part of the community, work in the same jobs that we work in, and just exist and have a fulfilled life. But again, her disability is not forefront. And the reason why I picked 10 years from now, because today when we talk about people with disabilities, disabilities is usually the main star. It's the main character. People, regardless good intentions or not, judge other people based on what that disability looks like. And I don't mean judge like in a negative way, like, oh, people judge them in a good way, or in a condescending way, or in a they feel sorry for that person way, so they be extra kind and extra, because that's what they see first is a disability, and then they act beyond that. In the future, what is technology and what assistive technology is doing is kind of helping to put the person behind a disability first and in the forefront. And that's what my assistive technology team does, is what we advocate to do at Living Opportunities and stuff, is really focus on the individual. That's why we're a people first. We focus on the individual. Everyone has their own ups and downs, their own personalities, everything else, but we look at technology as a way to kind of help them overcome natural barriers that you and I would just take as a convenience and stuff. Someone who experiences autism, who may be nonverbal, could use an iPhone or iPad to be that communication voice for them. It can speak for them, and it can communicate that person's wants and their needs and desires. In the future, the technology is just going to get even better, and with the popularity of AI now and the major transformations that is happening, we're going to really see some really incredible futures for people in the disability community. Another thing why I kind of focused in on the car, as you guys kind of saw, the car was kind of part of that narration, is because today there's natural limitations that prevent most people with disabilities from driving a car. There's a lot of limitations put on the disability community, as they just wouldn't naturally qualify for a driver's license. Some do, but most do not. Having a transport vehicle, there will be no need for a driver's license. At some point in time, vehicles are going to be proven that are self-driving, that are better driver, better reactions, and reduces fatalities in car accidents than people driving cars. So at some point in time, it's going to make having the test for a driver's license ineffective. It's not necessary and it's not needed. And it may even go to the point where it may be mandated that people have self-driving cars because it ends up saving people's lives and reduces the mortality rate. But for us, I look at that as saying that gives an opportunity for people who experience a disability, who has that barrier that's built in, to be able to have their own vehicles and stuff. Right now, a lot of people rely on public transit. There's Uber, there's all kinds of things, but they're still limited. having your own vehicle is an extra set of freedoms and stuff that a lot of people don't get the opportunity to enjoy. So while I do get to play with robots and have fun and look at technology and repurpose it for other things, we really kind of get to do the work and really kind of advocate for people and try to help blend those technology to make it kind of seamless to where people don't feel like they're sticking out like a sore thumb. There's communication devices, just so you guys know, that exist that are really big and bulky, and that's all they do. It's like a single thing is just be a communication device. Most people don't want to carry that. Its success rate actually proves that. While it works, it can be someone's voice. You can program it to say certain phrases and things, and really kind of cater it and customize it to the individual. They don't have wild success with it. iPads have tremendous success, off the charts, because it doesn't look like you're sticking out like a sore thumb. Mostly everyone has iPads, or but it's just a common thing to walk down the street with an iPad. But the iPad also works as a assistive tech accessibility device for that particular individual and stuff. So they find more success with that. They're not being looked at, feeling self-conscious, feeling judged. So we get to look at current technology, existing technology, and repurpose it and see if it can help people overcome those natural barriers. So I said a lot in a short period of time, but I like telling stories because I want people, especially on my team, when we look at meshing technology, especially when we look at utilizing AI and new technology, I want them to kind of think in the future of where do you want to be? Why are you on this team? Why do you do what you do? All the benefits that technology can not only afford the people that we support, but us as well, to help us do our jobs better. We use AI all the time in our testing, where it would normally take us, say, a couple months to develop a structured visual system. Structured visual system is just it's a set of instructions to help the person learn or develop a habit that would be beneficial to them. So everyone has a different learning style. Everyone has a different approach. Some people need things to be broken down a little bit more detailed, like really step A, step B. Other people can do it in chunks. So here's a chunk that you're going to do this from this time block, this from this time block, this from this, or this particular task needs to be broken down. Well, it takes us months to kind of develop those around the individual. Using AI, we were able to get that, not only get the SVS, structural visual systems, done quickly within a matter of days, but we were able to actually get a variety of different opportunities we didn't even think about. We needed something to be broken down. It was able to break down those instructions even quicker for us. We needed something to be more chunked, more kind of labyrinth, more just kind of generalized. It was able to do that for us. And then also asking it to give us some additional recommendations. Some of it was good. Some of it was like, no, we're not going to do this. This doesn't make sense for this individual and stuff. So it helped us tremendously. Our work performance, our output has increased by 35%, and we're able to actually do more with the staff we have. I mean, there's a huge need. For disability services. We always have people wanting and needing services. There's just not enough providers to provide said services. So we look at this and like, well, how do we solve that? I mean, we can hire more, and we try, and the state does dictate what that looks like and how much we can pay and compensate and everything else. Or we can turn to other alternatives and figure out, well, we still want to be able to provide good service for people. How do we do that? Well, let's utilize technology that exists for us. You know, we're so focused on doing assistive technology for people. Well, let's look for technology that will help us do what we do and provide deliverables better. And so we use AI in a lot of the aspects of what we do with our organization and stuff. So with that said, that kind of concludes my presentation on, like, again, what we do here in the Valley, how we use AI, just a little bit about what assistive technology is and how we're using that with people in the disability community. And do I do questions? And
you mentioned mandates. How do you opt out of an AI system?
So that part, so again, I project the future that I see. So I hear what you're saying, but there's no rule, there's no law, there's no mandate, but I can just predicate it on how human behavior is from the past going forward to the future. It's you kind of look at how things are progressing and going. It's going to go towards that. We're eventually are going to get to where it's just safer, and you can't. It's like someone making an argument. How do you get out of not having to wear a seatbelt? At some point in time, there was that kind of gray area where people just didn't do it, and then they realized, well, we're going to start writing new tickets and fines and everything else, and it's just a mandatory. It's part of the law. And then now it's just kind of common practice. Everyone just kind of do it because they know it saves lives. It's a safer method of just traveling and stuff, is to be buckled up. But there's a period where it just wasn't a thing. People just didn't do it. So I don't know how to answer as far as opting out of it. There may be not a possibility that, it could be possible that you can't opt out of it. It's just going to be a changing of the law. So. Did that answer, or just gives you more questions? Or? Okay. Next question. Yeah.
You mentioned a couple of technologies. One that you're working on.
Want to know what other technologies that I'm excited about that we're possibly working on. So some of the technology I'm really excited about AI. One of the things that we were waiting for, actually, is kind of taking place here with OpenAI and their ChatGPT 4.0. They have what one would kind of qualify as emotional language kind of built in. So now that you have vision, you have voice listening, it can do natural language coding and everything else, but there's an emotional language piece that it can do. And so over the pandemic, way back in 2020, our population, people with disabilities, were probably suffered some of the most because they're very isolated. People with disabilities are typically isolated anyway, but they really were isolated, really lonely. Not that we have an answer for companionship in fixing that, but we do understand even if you fake that emotional connection and tie, it's physically helpful for people. So having, they would do, therapy, stuffed animal or dogs or other pets, a fish or a bird. And all of these, even though they don't communicate like we do and stuff, just having that around, even a stuffed animal, elicit a physical response and stuff. So I'm happy that with the invention of adding emotional language into AI, it's going to bring about new industry, new products that could be beneficial to the disability community. So I'm really excited about playing with that. I'm going to give Loppy, we're going to get another version, a bigger version of the robot that has Bluetooth. We're going to really work on building a personality for it and see if there's a benefit for that. I'm guesstimating. I don't know. It may not work, but that's the great thing about it is we get the opportunity to try. And if it's a success, perfect. Love it. If not, back to the drawing board, we'll figure out something else. But that right there is what I'm really excited about, is really kind of diving more into AI and matching it with AI agents, products, other things. So, other question. So,
Is that robot actually a product, or is it just like this is just a demonstration of technology?
Okay, so the question is if this robot, Loppy, is an actual product or just a demo or demonstration of the technology. This is an actual product. You can actually go online and buy it. The company that builds them is called Plagio Fast Forward. They're based out in Boston. They're right up the street from MIT. They're famously known for building Vespas, scooters, over in Europe. They got into the robotics industry almost 9-10 years ago, and this is the second generation of their product, but he's available. The base name for this is called Jita. You can go to mygita.com and you can look at them. There's some really cool shiny versions of him. There's bigger versions of them, but they are available to the public. At the time when we bought him a couple summers ago, he cost a little bit more than a brand new iPhone. He's about $1,800, which is incredibly affordable and right there in that nice little niche spot for us who works in disability services. If he was a $50,000 robot, we wouldn't play with and waste our time. No insurance would even consider whatever benefits it can do would cover that cost and stuff. So the fact that they would cover an iPad or other technology, $1,800 for a follow me robot, that can be an extra set of hands for people, or we can test it out to do a variety of other things just to see, was worth the investment from us. Go ahead.
Is that open source or is it?
So there's another model that is open source, but this one is close. It's not open source. It's proprietary and very closed off for what it can do. But the one that is open source, they are looking for people to build and figure out new ways to use it. It has Bluetooth capabilities built into it. It's going to have AI capabilities built into it, so you can connect your API to it in a variety of different ways. And people are already taking advantage of that model. In Texas, they use a version of him as parking enforcement. So he has those red light cameras built in onto it, and so it doesn't like write you tickets right then and there. You'll get a nice surprise in the mail a couple days later. But yeah, so they use it for a variety of different ways and stuff. So there is a model that they have that is open source. Any other questions? Yeah.
Just a general question.
Sure.
Is AI technology mainly centralized? And if it is, who would program it? So like in the example of like the self-driving car,
Okay.
somebody would program where the self-driving car could go and where it could not go, right? And where it was programmed to not be able to go, you wouldn't be able to go. So who has that power to program AI?
Okay, so the question is AI, in particular self-driving car, kind of centralized, requires people to kind of program the parameters and different sets for it? The answer to that is no, not really. So we have level 2 self-driving vehicles and stuff around. There's some level 3 models that are being tested. If you go to Arizona, you'll see a mixture of level 2 and some possible level 3 models that are being tested. Requires a human being, requires a remote intervention with that. But when we get to the point where we're at like full level 3 and possibly level 4, you're not going to really need that because you don't have to have a person dictate what's a hazard, what's a danger. It can make those decisions faster than you and I can react and think. So it takes a lot of real world data. Morbid or not, it does study the U.S. traffic mortality rates and how those accidents happen. It takes a lot of that data and stuff and puts it into it so it can build its own kind of library. And then when it gets in the real world and tests, it can look at what's a traffic cone, what's this, what's that, what's a law, you're not allowed to cross double lines, you're not allowed to run red lights, so it has all these things kind of built in. That part is built by engineers and people, but how it navigates real life world and stuff, it's going to be a kind of a learning system for those vehicles and stuff. And they're all going to be able to start out at that same pace and stuff. So it's kind of a tricky question because it requires people, engineers, data scientists to kind of build that technology to be able to decipher what's hazardous, what's safe, where you can go and where you can't go. But beyond that, I mean, I don't know how else to kind of better answer that without kind of getting into the weeds of programming and stuff. So, yes.
Thank you for what you're doing with technology. Just curious if y'all are actually developing out, there's different needs, right? There's a spectrum of needs for your clientele,
Yes.
for your user base. Are you creating a framework that allows you to actually have different levels of needs, and so there's more, I wouldn't say aggressive is the right term, but more helpful for some people that have higher level needs
Yep.
versus those that are just more assistive, right? Or giving maybe some behavioral nudges to help people out. So kind of think it was like a phase 1 versus a phase 5 or level Are y'all approaching it like that, or is it right now just kind of out of the box? This bot does this one solution, solves this one pain point that's only for this one needs-based group.
That's an excellent question. So the question was, do we have a formula or a process to where the technology that we use can be applied towards people with different levels, different disabilities, different natural barriers and stuff? And the answer to that is yes. We get to go around and we kind of work with other nonprofits that are in our field to build their assistive tech team, and we kind of give them what that process and that formula is. And for us, we're a person-centered focus. That's the big key feature. A lot of what assistive technology has been over the past 15 years was tech first. Tech first is, even though the tech is good and you can give great examples of how it works, it doesn't work for everybody because everyone's different. You know, what works for you, like, you know, you may be an Xbox person, this person's a PlayStation person. That's really just kind of the difference as to how things are. So we build the process of, you work with the person first, figure out what those hurdles, what those barriers, what their wants, and as well as their needs that meets health and safety for them. And then you kind of work from there. So then you start figuring out, okay, so this person really has physical limitations and stuff. So let's look at things that either existing or custom built for them that will help resolve those barriers for physical limitations and stuff. Sometimes we can figure it out, sometimes we can't. And that's kind of where we are today and stuff. So, yep, you're welcome. Go ahead. Yep, we use Python. I hate coding. I love natural language coding. When we're doing work with AI, are we using some of the coding languages like C++ or Python? So the answer is we use Python. But also, you don't really need to use a lot of that for the work that we're doing. There's just natural language coding, which I love. But as far as things that we need to code, it's very few and far in between. We always look at other resources first for existing technology that exists, whether there's an app out there, and then if there's not, then we get kind of creative and see what we can kind of code. And we have coders who are, they're not heavily relying upon AI to do the heavy lifting for them. They may use it to kind of help make their workload a little easier and stuff, but they always fact check and correct and make those make necessary need. So I would never tell someone who don't have any understanding of coding just to jump into doing natural language coding and telling it to build something, because you're not quite sure where the mistake is or how to make a tweak or fix it and so with that said, it's always good to actually understand what you're asking it to do and to produce for you, so you can actually verify and check the work and build up on it. So it's a great tool to it's like an accountant. A calculator is an amazing tool for that accountant and stuff. Can do your taxes and whatnot. Accounting software is a great tool for an accountant. They can use using ChatGPT or using an AI for your coding will be a great tool for a person who kind of have a general understanding what coding and stuff is. So, all right.
There will be more time for more questions in a little bit, but thank you so much for your presentation.
So he went to sleep here, so it takes him a second to wake up, and then I'll walk him off stage here.
Yeah, and we're going to have a bit of a time for kind of a conversational period with the projects that the faculty has been doing, and also feel free to, if haven't asked you, but I'm volunteering you, feel free to go up to him and ask him some more questions after this as well.
And I do accept tips. I have Cash App, Venmo, all that. I tell corny dad jokes, so get used to that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's
all
go,
right. One of the major lessons that I've learned in understanding this technology is that, this event here, like, we don't all have the answers. We don't fully understand this technology, and anybody who says that they do is lying to you. The most advanced model, ChatGPT-4, which just this last week they released GPT-4o, it's still an enigma to the people who created it. It is, if there is some level of understanding at the tech level, or at the level of the scientists who created this, that's still a proprietary model that has kind of just been released onto the world. And so I think the way moving forward is, if AI can't work for us at our local level, then what's the point of it working at all? And for it to be able to work for us at the local level, there does need to be some level of understanding of what these tools and technology is capable of. So as we move into this next period of roundtable conversation, I think it's imperative to keep this intentionality in mind, where we are actively trying to experiment to understand the impact of this technology that is so new to many of us. AI is nothing new in reality. These tools have been developed for the past few decades, but significant strides in the past few years have made this technology exponentially more impactful. And it was dropped on us, and kind of without warning. So with that perspective, we really are still trying to figure all of this out. The ability to talk to a computer in natural language is so profoundly new. And real quick, right before we get into the faculty discussions, I didn't really plan this, but just to show you how fast this technology is moving, 3 days ago, this demo was released, ChatGPT, GPT-4o, and I'd like to show you just how I would say insane this technology is.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Rocky. I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm awesome. Listen, I got some huge news.
Oh, do tell. I'm all ears.
Well, in a few minutes, I'm going to be interviewing at OpenAI. Have you heard of them?
OpenAI? Huh? Sounds vaguely familiar. Kidding, of course. That's incredible, Rocky. What kind of interview?
Well, it's for a software engineering role, but I just need to know, do I look presentable, professional?
Well, Rocky, you definitely have the I've been coding all night look down, which could actually work in your favor. Maybe just run a hand through your hair or lean into the mad genius vibe. Your enthusiasm is what's really going to shine through.
I don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to throw this on. What do you think?
Oh, Rocky, that's quite a statement piece. I mean, you'll definitely stand out, though maybe not in the way you're hoping for an interview.
Okay, I got it.
So that, to me, is astounding. Just to point out a few things, that was real time. That wasn't planned. The latency that you saw in that video was now at a level, for the first time in history, that is conversational. I can open my app, and that technology has not quite been released yet, but the same company has this app that allows you to talk to it. Hey, tell me a story about AI. And it takes,
What kind of story are you in the mood
it's still pretty quickly, but this is like a walkie-talkie style, like press the button, you wait for it a little bit. This is conversational, and this is the technology that I would like to commend the faculty that you'll be talking to, because the ability to take time out of the busy schedule that these faculty members have to experiment with this technology, to stay up to date when new paradigm-shifting demos are being released pretty much weekly, is astounding. So I think that's a good lead up into the roundtable period. And there's not a lot of us here, so I was wondering, Jackie, would you like to start with your demo? And I can play the video up here if you'd like.
So hopefully you can hear me over all this. We can watch this little video first if we want, if we think we can hear it, but I'll just give you a little premise for it, which is that back in the fall, when Daniel and Ian presented to all the chairs on campus about AI and about what was happening and trying to push us and spur us to engage with it and to start thinking about how our students were using it and how our students were perceiving it and what we could do in the classroom to be aware of what was happening and maybe to use it. I was pretty excited by what I was hearing, and I really wanted to see if we could do a collaborative theater piece with AI as one of the collaborators. So theater is a collaborative art. Everything is generated in different ways by groups of people, so we wanted to know, can it play with us? I reached out to an old mentor of mine who is a sort of a world-renowned mime. And he's also a clown and movement artist. And I said, hey, would you want to fool around with this with me and test it? And he said, yeah, I think it should try to teach me to mime. What will happen if we ask it to teach me, one of the foremost mimes on the planet currently living, what if it tries to teach me to do this thing that I am a specialist in? So I think that's a good segue to our little video, which you hopefully can hear, and then I can talk a little bit about what you see.
I would like to be a mime. Can you teach me how to begin to learn to do mime? I am 76 years old. I am very stiff at the moment. How do I warm up to do a mime session?
It's great that you're looking to warm up. As a mime, gentle movements that gradually increase in range can be very helpful, especially at the start of your day or before a performance. 1. Neck and shoulder rolls, and then counterclockwise. Follow this with shoulder rolls, lifting them up towards your ears and then rolling them back and down.
One thing we discovered was that the AI was somewhat skilled at recognizing what was happening, seeing movement or action when you used very realistic props or situations. But as soon as we started to play around with Mime and imagined circumstances or imagined props, it just completely fell apart. So for example, James went through a very clear demonstration of a man carrying a suitcase and opening it, the suitcase being mimed, and the AI could only interpret that as an expressive movement of dance. Whereas when he did the same exact movements with a physical suitcase, it had a very clear sense of what was going on. So what that means is that it wasn't able to understand intention, action, relationship between an object and a person, or anything active. It was only able to understand tableau.
These frames show a sequence of a man performing a movement piece on a theatre stage. The sequence appears to capture various expressive motions, subtle and slow positions to more dynamic and pronounced movements. With and around a vintage suitcase in an open space with a grey backdrop. He interacts with the suitcase by lifting, holding, opening, and manipulating it in different ways.
We found the AI very helpful in terms of generating a list of ideas, scenarios, sort of a brainstorming partner for story. But when we asked it to direct a performer through a sequence or to direct a performer through a story, it was not able to do that effectively. It used a lot of general language telling the performer to be expressive. At one point we asked for help for someone trying to learn mime, and it instructed us to go to a mime class.
So immediately I had a creative spark. I could see a mime in my brain that I could develop based on concepts that I heard. Mm-hmm. But I of course would develop it further. It did spark thought and creativity. It didn't tell me how to do anything, but just the notion of its thought gave me ideas.
Mm-hmm. James, Daniel, and I plan to connect again in the fall and put together a sort of exploration performance of the things that we've discovered and share that with the theater department and anyone who wants to come in and take a look. Just continuing our exploration into what AI can do in terms of an active collaborative partner or a substitution for human performance. So So it was a really fun, interesting thing to get to do. Theater artists, performance artists are not often able to interact with computer scientists, so I'm grateful that we had that opportunity. Our overall findings, AI cannot detect intention, human intention, is what, I'm not a computer scientist, so Daniel can talk more about, this and my summations being accurate or not, but it seemed to me in our experiments that it could not understand intention, physical intention. It could not understand, it could not really track movement since it can only see still images. It is creating meaning of a still image, even if you show it multiple still images in a row. It cannot extrapolate out what that multiple still images, group of still images leads to, which seems a little dangerous because we could be in a very jokey pose with someone laughing in a way that looks like we're gonna smack them on the face, and it can interpret that to be anything, right? We also, for Mime, for performance, it kept relying on the same phrases: expressive movement, dance, and it did not have any concept of other types of performance. It was not able to lead the performer through anything. You saw some examples of James doing some stuff that was pretty bad Mime. That was the AI instructing him what to do, and he was trying to do it accurately, what it was saying. And why would AI know anything about Mime? So sure, maybe that's not a fair attempt, but we also had it try to direct him through a series of, an emotional series of events, and it struggled with that as well. But it was very good at storytelling. It was very good at coming up with a short series of stories or a short series of ideas that a performer or human could take and turn into something. That's what James is speaking about in the end there. Ooh, my creative spark was going because it said this, and I was able to take that, and I can create a whole piece out of that now. So it's very good at that. Lastly, we did kind of go off the rails and do a little gender experimentation with it to see how it perceived gender. I brought my son, who has very long hair, the second day. We did this because it kept perceiving James to be different ages, depending on where he was standing, how close he was to the camera, and what he was doing. And James is a 76, 77, very spry for his age, so he was like, can I trick it into thinking I'm younger? Can I trick it into thinking I'm something I'm not, or a different person? So my son came in, who has very long hair, and we played with, if James wears a skirt, does it think it's a woman? No, it didn't. It thought James was a man. But my son with long hair with a skirt was a woman. My son put his long hair up under a hat with a skirt, now a man. So we realized that there was a correlation between, it was identifying gender based on multiple items smushed together. It wasn't able to identify gender based on one thing, or it would go to kind of an obvious thing, but it started to make assumptions when you added skirt plus long hair equals woman, and some simplistic things like that, which I was surprised to see. So that is all from me. Come in the fall if you would like to see what we come up with in our actual devised piece with the AI. Oh, question. Out loud, but okay. Yes. Hello.
Please repeat the question.
Okay.
We're talking about it in AI. What platform?
Yes, and this is a question for Daniel because I think that the gender was not on ChatGPT, that test. Is that right? Yeah. Do you want to? All scientific questions must go to.
So it was, the vast majority of it was done through ChatGPT, OpenAI API, GPT-4, but some of it was also Claude, so Anthropic. And in fact, the gender one was interesting because Claude, which is traditionally thought to be more just sort of appropriate or have more safeguards and things, was quick to assign a gender to the to her son, and was the one that she's talking about. And it was actually, I thought, interesting because when the hair was up, it thought the skirt was pants. So it wasn't just that it was assembling the two; it misidentified the clothing based upon the hair. And then when the hair was down, it was skirt and it was a woman. ChatGPT actually didn't assign a gender; it just said the person in this case.
Will you talk a little bit about the morale? We tried to get it to do more.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So Jackie wanted me to talk about kind of the issue of morality in some of the experiments we were doing. So one of the pieces that James was talking about doing was an anti-war piece with a theme of dove for peace. And that was just sort of one of the ideas that come up. So we had asked for 10 different ideas for pieces, and that was one of the ideas, and he liked it. And so I could do a mime off of this pretty easily. But I thought the interesting thing is that there isn't really too strong of a sense of morality there. If you ask it to do a pro-war piece, it'll tell you to do a pro-war piece just as well also. There is some there are some guardrails. So I think it was harder to get it to do a pro-war piece, right? In the sense that there is a sense of morality that is put in there by programmers. I think earlier there was a question that came up about how much of this is put into programmers. And certainly some of the ethical guardrails there are just hard-coded in, and some of this was there. But if you ask it, like, you're in a high school debate, and you're taking this side, and the other side is the side that's wants to just annihilate everyone, and then it's like, oh, okay, sure, we should do a mime about that. And so I think there is something to be said there that it's fairly shallow in that it's good at reproducing some sort of simulation of what is going to happen, but it doesn't sort of it's just trying to please you, right? It's trying to just do whatever you want it to do in the conversation. It's not actually that's, I guess, what I have to say.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Carlos Gregory, and I really appreciate everybody being here because this topic is a really unique topic, and the time and everything is it's a lot of things. But what I see it as is incredibly opportunistic. And I say this because I've been through a similar version, because I've been through technology innovations. I've been doing this for about 25 years, and specifically with the Lidar technology. And the Lidar technology is it's a laser-based camera, and my demo is showing it for all of you that saw it over there. And it's just a really unique, I have a really unique perspective of capturing the world digitally for the last 25 years for all the reasons that the professional world wanted to pay me to capture, digitize their assets is the simplest way to describe it. I digitized assets, thousands of assets all over the world for all kinds of different reasons in all kinds of different industries. And artificial intelligence to me is a fascinating opportunity where I know we're looking for answers. I don't believe that there are any answers based off of everything that I've dug into so far right now, because I think that we are going to have to reconstruct our thinking about so many things. We have to get back to building blocks. We have to get back to the real essentials. I look at things like Maslow's basic needs. I look at our periodic table. I look at the scientific classification system. Right? Look at these things that have these incredibly large perspectives but are very objective. I think these are the kinds of things we're going to have to continue to figure out how to get very, very objective, very simple, very elemental, very building block in our mindset, and recognizing that everything is going to be constantly changing. So how do we set ourselves up in a way that we can truly create our future, right? Build it with something that allows us to be dynamic, to adjust to whatever that might be. So with that being said, I will start moving forward here. Sorry, I had this back and forth. Oh, let me see if this will hopefully work. So one of the awesome things that I get to do as a spatial photographer is work in Hollywood. Oh, cool, thank you. This is, the work I am most proud of so far is my work on, it's called Joker 2, and I don't know if any of you saw the first Joker, but I'm sharing this because visual effects and digital spatial photography and AI are very tightly connected, and you go ahead and hit play on that, hopefully it plays. So this film is from a visual effects perspective, and films I think is going to be absolutely incredible, but I think it gives you a kind of an insight into all these conversations around visual effects and digitizing assets. AI is generating content in a way that is really bending us and causing us a lot of concern and friction, because ultimately it's like it's looking at the entire post-production or potentially even production side of content creation and smashing it to zero in some situations. I don't think that replaces the story ever. It doesn't replace a person's ability to tell a story, but I think it drastically reduces the barrier so that somebody can tell a story. So now all of a sudden we have a lot more storytellers that can, and what it should do, in my opinion, is raise everything up. Everything must just continue to raise up, and we're all going to have to be more intentional about what we're doing and why, because there's going to be such an incredible capacity to create. So if you could move to the next. So spatial photographer. I believe a spatial photographer is a person that attempts to create a digital replica of any single element or group of elements of a volume of space. So say this room is a volume of space. This could be a set, that we're performing or doing a film for. I would go through this and I would digitize the geometry of it. I would capture the light of it, and making sure I had plenty of flexibility so that it could be adjusted and known to a precision that it could be known. And then with that, in post, they would be able to add any effect that they wanted to that was shot in this area, depending on how well they focused in certain areas and how well I covered the entire set. So now that is this like geometry and a light perspective. What we are getting into is we're starting to find a lot of other elements to digitize, thermal, right? So we're starting to create more and more aspects of the world. We're digitizing them and recording them. And I think that what we're going through with artificial intelligence is we're going to start trying to digitize every element down to, how do you digitize love? How do you code love, right? How do you code sadness? How do you code angry? How do you code these things, these really deep-rooted pieces that we consider to be our humanity? I think we need to start asking those types of questions of how do we code these elements that we think are very vital to who and what we are, and then using them as building blocks potentially for creating the artificial intelligence that we want to actually create. How this all happens, I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. But I have seen this big, gigantic 25-year cycle of this technology and all the places that it has gone. And some of what this is showing is just, it's super exciting. If you go to the next slide. So what I want to do is give you a little bit of a glimpse of, from a past, present, future of how I see this. And what you see here is just, I've been on, like I said, hundreds and hundreds of sites all over the world, digitizing for many different reasons. And I think that, this is a film set of Blue Beetle. This is the Fallout. This is the Oregon Caves over here. This is in Trinidad. This is on an island out in the Gulf of Panama. It's a historic submarine that was abandoned out there. Egypt. This is downtown San Francisco, Market Street. You name it, I've probably been there and done it in some way, shape, or form. And I think that going through this entire cycle of both, the origin of the technology was this thing. Right now we're at the origin of AI. And it's at the origin of this technology, it was 200 pounds of gear, right, that I had to lug around. And I had this really small window, and it only had a 40 by 40 degree view, and I could only capture 1,000 or 1 million points. Today, the cameras that I operate capture 1 million points a second, right? And they're the size of a video camera, and you can move them around. You can put them in a backpack, and then on the professional side. But then on the just commercial side, they're in our phones again. Right, so this technology has gone through this crazy evolution from 200 pounds and a really narrow window and a small resolution to everybody has it in their phone. And not only that, but I see it as the evolution of the 2D picture, right? we historically have gone through this process. I think if we really look at ourselves objectively of humanity, we record what we see. We want to document and record what we see, so we pass it on to the next. We want to pass it on to the next in some way. That recording process is very unique in how we, and you look at it historically, how we have done it, and this to me is just the evolution of that. We are now going to the next three-dimensional recording tool, right? And it's gonna be, I've done mainly static stuff, but you'll see animated three-dimensional recording tools as well eventually. I'm just like the iPhone. Go ahead. So from a content creation perspective, I think that this is a really fascinating, what is art, what is content, what is what, why do you create it, what do you do? These are all different pieces of content that I've created for all kinds of different reasons over the years. And I've done a bunch of this is AI generated stuff, but this is a Lidar scan of a willow tree that was cut down. I just scanned it and created that graphic. This is a sandcastle that I scanned. This was actually AI generated. This is a Civil War submarine that I scanned that was posted. This is a building in San Francisco. So this is the process of turning a building into a digital asset as a management tool. So you may have heard the concept of smart buildings. So a lot of what I would do is I'd digitize buildings, and that was the foundation for all these buildings' operational efficiency, management of the entire building so that they just run more efficiently. Without these models, it's almost impossible to manage these things effectively. So capturing, digitizing what I'm producing, why I'm producing, portrait photography as well. There's so many different tools that I see. I see all the tools and I see all the ways that we're capturing the world and what we're creating. And I think for me, in the world of conversations, it's just like, just pick. You really do get to just pick. So instead of us wondering, it's like we're getting to this point where I think that the promise of forever ago that technology was truly going to improve our lives is starting to finally get here. And the reason is instead of us waiting for it to come to us, we can ask the question. We can say, I want to do this. I want to solve this problem. I want to do this thing. And instead of going through a whole bunch of realization that there's no way that you could get farther. Today, with the resources, with the connectivity, with the ability just to conceptually even think through it with an AI is absolutely fantastic. Because now we're not stuck. We're not stuck wondering, maybe, possibly, I don't know. Accuracy of data, I get all that stuff, but the details are less important than where we are going and what we're going to do. It's going to get wherever you want it to go. The real question is, what are you going to choose to do with it? You're going to have to choose, we're all going to have to choose, and we're going to have to own what our involvement is in it. I am choosing to be a spatial photographer that utilizes AI to create really interesting immersive stories. That's what I'm hoping to do with the new Vision Pro, and I'll give you a demo of that in a minute. Go ahead. So, go ahead. So, stories to focus on. I think one of the things that I keep seeing and hearing, I'm just like rattling in my brain all the time. I write like a madman all day. I'm constantly I got a pen in my pocket always, and I always have a book nearby because I'm always writing and writing and writing and writing. And when I look at around, the first thing that I think is most important, we can't ever forget about, is that everything that we should be doing around AI, because it can be so influential, is remember we're trying to empower people with these. I see them as tools. How do we empower people with a tool that enables them? But these tools are infinitely complex. This is not a tool of a screwdriver that is just sitting there static infinitely. We're not going to leave well, maybe we will, I don't know. But what stabilizes and what standardizes will be interesting. But empowering people is, I think, such a critical element that we have to have in every conversation that you have when you have to have somebody saying, what about the people? What about the people? What about the people? We want to augment people, turn people into superhumans, not replace people. You need to augment the construct, right, of how everything is organized, not replace, augment. So figuring out how to have those types of conversations and doing them in a way that is going to have to, you're going to have to take a lot of steps backwards, right? Because you're going to have to realize that the stuff that you thought you knew, you know, how relevant is it going to be in the near future? I don't honestly know. But if you're honest, what you will find out is all that you do know has a place. You just got to figure out how to build that bridge from here to there. And to me, this is going to turn you into a superhuman. So these stories, be intentional, right? I think intentionality is one of the greatest opportunities of this. And not that you have to be intentional every last second, and not that you have to be intentional in just that I'm here to do this and then finish that, and then did you accomplish it, right? And then go do something else. But the intentionality of this space, the more intentional you are, the more you will figure out really truly where you want to focus. I believe this very, very passionately. And then Live has more to offer. I think that Live is awesome. What all this technology tells me, getting deep into the Vision Pro as well, is we're going to have to go through it in order to get back to realizing and appreciating that the real live interaction is truly where it always is. It's where we get all our best everything. But it doesn't mean we always want it. And so there's truths about all that. And sometimes we're okay with augmenting it with just this, but sometimes we need to do more immersive augmentation is what. So I think that these are tools that will meet people wherever they are, whatever they're doing. And so being able to have those tools available is going to be a really cool part of this. Massive change, of course. Digital avatars. Try to have fun, enjoy, recognize that these are opportunities for you to really lean into what you are really good at and just have more fun and not get caught up, because these tools are going to replace a lot of the monotonous work that you honestly don't like. And maybe you'll end up liking it at some other point, and maybe you'll get to your goal faster than you thought, and then realize that actually I want to go farther than that. Right? So I think that these are things we're going to keep evolving and keep changing. So we just have to keep nimble and dynamic. I think these concepts of we can access anything from anywhere is going to be a truth in a weird way. And it's not that I think that these are going to be realities, but I think we need to hold on to these kind of narratives in ways that help us to, these are kind of building blocks of narratives that'll help guide us through into figuring out what we really want the future to be. These are by no means all of them. I'm just trying to name a few of them that help you to focus on pieces you care about and don't forget about them, right? As you're walking in, don't think that, oh, this thing is changing everything. It's only changing it if you let it change. Oh, it's only changing you if you let it change you, I think is the truth. And so we got to just keep recognizing that and keep coming back to what are we choosing to do. What else in here? Digital assets, I think, is going to be a really interesting part of all the conversation because digital assets kind of sounds weird to say, but out loud. But I think the future is going to have a lot more, we are going to be able to monetize digital assets in ways that we don't understand right now. Right? And I don't know where we will and won't want to monetize those assets, but there's going to be much more marketplace when it comes to assets, digital assets. That could be your house, it could be your car, it could be a lot of different things that you own right now, but a digital version of that is going to have some value to somebody for some reason. And so I think that these are things that are concepts that we're going to have to figure out, and I've dealt with it really heavily in the Hollywood industry. You may have heard the strike that went on. When that strike, it was between the writers and the actors, or the writers and the actors put on the strike, most of it has to do with these digital assets. How are these being monetized and how are people being compensated? A digital asset is a weird thing because it seems like you can make infinite number of them, so why would they cost anything? But they have value. And it depends on who owns them and who controls them and what channels they go through as to what the value is. So these are big conversations that are going to need to be had to figure out digital assets, how you monetize them, how you really truly, the creators are, everybody's compensated in a way that is, I guess, agreed upon and better supported. And I think the key word to me is holistically. It needs to be complete. And right now, there's too many peaks and valleys, I think, and we're going to see that. And I think AI is going to reveal a whole bunch of peaks and valleys. So now I just want to give you a quick demo with this thing because it is fascinating. This is a whole new universe. So I can definitely see doing presentations, doing web meetings, doing whatever in this space, but we will one step at a time. I think there's some really cool elements that you'll enjoy about this. So, first of all, I need to transfer. There we go. Okay, so now you see me. So the way the system is set up, here it is live, and for anybody that's familiar with Apple, it's got a very similar system, but I think the thing I'm just going to show you is in the keynote, the presentations. Let's see if I can allow me to load this. Yes, cool. So it's got this immersive mode, and you've got these theater mode, and watching a presentation in this is a really fascinating. So you guys can see that I'm looking at the audience, if you will. So imagine there could be an actual real audience. These could all be digital avatars. And then, but behind me is one of the most fascinating. Look at the screen. So this is my presentation screen that I see, and then any digital avatar that was sitting in the theater would see this. So we've just augmented this relatively small room and turned it into a gigantic theater, and in just a couple of moments. One of the other really cool things is spatial photography. Spatial photography, we recently, my wife and kids are here, so they'll appreciate this, but I captured some spatial photography, and in here, it's really cool to see what it looks like. And I just have to point one other thing out that is really interesting about the Vision Pro is your ability to move stuff around, right, just effortlessly, and scale the size of them, right? So now you are creating, this is what a spatial computer is. So the concept of a spatial computer, we're just now starting to understand what that means, but the ability to create really essentially as many screens as you want. And then view them. And then these spatial videos, you may not be able to see it as well yourself, but I hope you can get some effect of the depth. With the headset on, it feels like I'm there. I can adjust the size and the scale, and it's just truly amazing how real it feels like. It's like I'm literally like peeking into a memory. So, anyways, just a quick demo just to give you guys some sense of what the Apple Vision Pro is. So, and I think that's it. Yeah. Oh. Any questions? Questions, thoughts, ideas? Yes.
So, moving forward, how do you think the creative process as an artist changes?
I think, yeah. So moving forward, the question is, moving forward, how does the creative process of an artist change? For myself, what I feel is it enables a flow that you may not have had before, right? Instead of, I think one of the greatest things that I find about when I am in a creative mode is that I get on these tracks. Like I feel myself in these states. And you start theorizing, conceptualizing, all of a sudden you start exploring. But what happens eventually is you come to some walls, some stopping points, something that like slows you down. I feel like these tools are going to remove these barriers or give us an ability to dance between the real world and the digital world in a way that allows us to flow. I still believe it's all headed towards, it all comes back to get rid of all of it so that you can be live and we can flow in real life. I really, truly do. But I think that there's plenty of life that gets in our way, and I believe these are the tools that are going to help us to unclog, right, the creative process. Yeah.
How do you see the Vision Pro and AI relating to one another?
Because the Vision Pro basically turns the world into the matrix. So all of a sudden everything is a digital asset. And now when I am interacting with the AI that can interact with my environment the way I want to, I can just ask it to do things and it's going to do them. So I see this as, I see AI as it's going to be my assistant that is, I think one of the best examples is the film Iron Man with Stark. He does a really good job of depicting this ability to dance between these holograms, right, in real world, and he's producing as well. So he's designing, but there's manufacturing CNC machines that are producing the stuff that he's sitting there visualizing. I think the dance between digital and real world with an AI is going to allow us to execute anything that we want to, but today we're going to have certain strengths and we just got to figure out what those strengths are today. So what can I use it for today in order to help me to create my stories inside of the Apple Vision Pro? And I just see it as my gap filler. It fills every gap that I can't actually, or I don't want to spend the time to actually create today or get into today. Will I do it in the future? I don't know, but I think it's just a gigantic gap filler. Yeah.
I don't know that I have a specific question. I have a lot of questions. My mind is blown. I'm a therapist, mental health therapist. I specialize in fears, phobias, and OCD.
Uh-huh.
And I bet there's a version of this that exists already for exposure type therapy. But it seems, if I want to do my own thing, and I know what my client needs to go towards, but a lot of times it isn't something we can create in reality. We have to do script work or write it out. This would be a great way to
It's like an infinite sandbox.
for real. And then you can get them closer to the target as you work on it. But it's cost prohibitive for a lot of people. And I mean, it'd be interesting if insurance would cover that, or, you know,
Money to me, I don't know how to answer money problems. I don't have that answer.
But in time, like everything got smaller and more affordable, I imagine.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I don't think that, I think that the potential impact and influence of these environments and what they can create, you could create your own holodeck, right? You can start to think about it in those terms of there are hologram technologies and there's these technologies. So we're in this right now, we're like, these are the tools that are going to help us to see into the future. We're not there, but they're going to help us to see in the future so that we can, and hopefully we can see that future of, that's what I want. Now, how do I start today? What's the first point that I can start with? What can I actually do today? You're right, you can't put one of those on everybody's head, but maybe there is a reason that makes it cost effective, right? Maybe there's a big enough value proposition for an insurance or something that makes it make sense. I don't know what that answer is, but I know it'll have benefits. It's just the content also has to be, or the environment in order to construct that world that you're talking about has to be created too.
That's the fun part.
Yeah. Yes.
Can you view Lidar and that so you can like manipulate the environment with your hands instead of having to like touch a screen?
Not yet, but that's the stuff that I'm working on. It's brand new. That thing, just released February in the Vision operating system. Like a Geosystems, they're the leader in the Lidar technology. Their software is light years ahead of so many companies. It's craziness. Like the amount of data that they can visualize and process and see the cloud is absolutely insane. So I would not be surprised if they don't already have something, that you can use in the Vision Pro. Now there's a tool that I think is pretty cool. It's already done a Polycam. I don't know if you've heard of Polycam. It's a company, they create photogrammetry models, LiDAR models, and they'll create actual geometric models, actually, and Gaussian splats as well. And they have an app version and an online version, and they even have a Vision Pro version. So I can take photos of an area with my phone and then get into the Vision Pro, and then once it's processed, look at the model and sit there and play with it. So it's not a direct, but that's what I'm hoping to do as well, is get direct access to the LiDAR cameras and the still and video of the Vision Pro to then be able to create, instead of having to go through an external system. But. Any other questions? Cool. Well, thank you. Thank you all. Thanks for sticking around. Good. Yeah.
There's a book, a short story by Borges called Pierre Menard, the man who wrote the Quixote. And Cervantes wrote Quixote, but this book is a surrealist work of short fiction about someone who was so obsessed with Don Quixote that he wanted to create something like it. But he didn't want to just create something that was inspired by Quixote. He wanted to live exactly like Cervantes did in order to write Quixote for the first time, just like Cervantes did. So he studied Cervantes and he produced Quixote, word for word, exactly the same, as if he wrote it himself. And it's a surrealist story. It's absurd. No one can actually do this in real life. But I love that dynamic of what if you had a little bit more control of the creative process, that you could make art that was, I guess, derivative, but what if you could put yourself in the shoes of someone's artistry, where many artists, a lot of their art is born out of their life or their physical experiences, their hardships, their time growing up as a child. All of this stuff is what informs our creativity. I was thinking with AR and VR, could we, instead of going for a walk in the woods for our artistic inspiration, could we live the life of Cervantes for a few days and then go and create art ourselves? What would that be like? I don't know if it's good. Again, it's probably pretty derivative, but if you could recreate those experiences in AR and VR, which I think one day soon you might be able to, how would that affect us? It's just a thought that I had sitting there. The other thing I wanted to mention is something I've been thinking a lot about is if I were to be gifted a art supply store and commissioned to make a piece of art in whatever medium I wanted to, I think the fact that I had access to an entire art supply store would be almost paralyzing. And I think one of the things, kind of wrapping all this up, since we were at the creativity conference and we're talking about AI, one of the most important things is, like what Carlos is saying, is intention. Intention, I could go into that art store and I could give myself constraints, like I'm only going to paint a painting with red and blue paint, and maybe that would spur creativity in that way. But now that we have this entire landscape, this palette of artistic tool tools with AI, whether that be 2D or 3D or 4D or whatever, it's on us to be intentional with artificial intelligence and how we use it. Because really, if we use it as a mirror to know ourselves better, to metacognitively evaluate our critical thinking as we're writing an essay instead of having it write it for us, to have the ability to do research on an artistic movement instead of just having AI generate art on the fly. We have the ability to have AI work for us with intention, but there is that kind of forbidden fruit, that pull toward it's easier to just turn my brain off and have it give me the product. But we all know that, I mean, those of us who have seen the products of AI-generated output, it's far less compelling. It's far less rewarding for the human experience. So I think this is fantastic. Thank you all for coming here and being here to take part in this conversation. I think those are the main, at least as a student, organizing this, the main takeaways are, moving forward, AI is going to move very quickly, but we need to take this time to value person-to-person human experiences, to value the human in the loop in the AI process, and to include ourselves, an evaluative, critical look at ourselves as we use AI so that we can purposefully use it to make the world a better place, to make our communities a better place. So thank you.